On June 6, 1993, two teenagers vanished from a Pennsylvania video store, leaving behind a pristine cash register. Imagine it's 3 a.m. The air is thick, smelling of incoming summer rain and cheap asphalt. You're driving down a lonely stretch of highway in rural Pennsylvania, the kind of road where the trees crowd the shoulder, blocking out the starlight. Up ahead, a single neon sign flickers against the dark sky, Video Haven. Inside, the fluorescent lights cast a sterile, pale green glow over rows of VHS tapes, heavy plastic cases, and cardboard standees of long-forgotten box office hits. The door is unlocked. The television behind the counter is humming with static, casting dancing shadows across the carpet. But there is no one here. The keys are still in the ignition of the car parked outside. A half-eaten slice of pizza sits on the counter, still warm. And on the desk, the cash drawer sits wide open, stuffed with hundreds of dollars in crisp, untouched bills. This wasn't a robbery. It was something far more sinister. To understand what happened that warm June night, we have to look at the two people who simply ceased to exist. 18-year-old Sarah Vance and 19-year-old Bobby Miller were best friends. They were the kind of kids who felt too big for their small town, spending their nights talking about moving to the city, surrounded by the comforting, plastic-scented sanctuary of Video Haven. It was a quiet job, the kind of place where you might see 3 customers on a slow Sunday night. June 6th was supposed to be no different. Sarah's mother dropped her off at 5 p.m., watching her walk through the glass doors, waving as she always did. Bobby arrived an hour later to help close up. At 10 p.m., the store was scheduled to lock its doors. But at 10:30, a regular customer pulled into the gravel parking lot, looking to return a late copy of a horror movie. He noticed Bobby's beat-up blue sedan was still parked in its usual spot, the engine cold, the driver's side door slightly ajar. When the customer walked up to the storefront, he found the lights blazing, the open sign still glowing its neon red, and the front door completely unlocked. And this is where things get truly disturbing. When the police arrived, expecting a standard burglary or a teenage runaway situation, they found a scene that defied all conventional logic. The cash register wasn't just left behind, it was practically put on display. The drawer was pulled out to its maximum limit, exposing nearly $800 in cash. In 1993, that was a small fortune for 2 teenagers. If this was a robbery, the thief had a bizarre aversion to money. On the counter lay Sarah's purse, containing her driver's license, her makeup, and $80 of her own cash. Bobby's wallet was sitting right next to it, untouched. Even stranger was the state of the store itself. There were no signs of a struggle. No knocked-over wire racks, no shattered glass, no scuff marks on the linoleum floor. It was as if Sarah and Bobby had simply vaporized mid-sentence. The movie playing on the store's main monitor was the 1986 horror comedy Little Shop of Horrors. It had reached the end of the tape, the screen flashing a blue, empty void, repeating a rhythmic, low-frequency hum that filled the empty room. What happened next defies all logic, turning a standard missing persons case into a waking nightmare for the local investigators. When detectives reviewed the store's logbook, they found a bizarre entry written in Bobby's handwriting, dated 9:42 p.m. It simply read, "The man in the back won't choose." At first, police assumed this referred to a stubborn customer struggling to pick a movie before closing. But Video Haven was a small, open-concept shop. There was no back other than a tiny, windowless employee break room and a small utility closet. Both were searched thoroughly with search dogs, but the dogs found no scent tracks leading out of the building. In fact, the tracking dogs lost the teenagers' scents entirely at the center of the store, right in front of the counter, as if they had been lifted straight through the ceiling. As the days turned into weeks, the silence from the investigation grew deafening. No demands for ransom ever came. No bodies were found in the surrounding woods, despite hundreds of volunteers combing the dense Pennsylvania brush. The police were left with a puzzle where none of the pieces fit. Why leave the money? Why leave the car keys? If they ran away together, why leave behind every single possession they owned, including their shoes? Yes, beneath the counter, police found both Sarah's canvas sneakers and Bobby's work boots, neatly placed side by side. They had walked out, or been taken, barefoot. To this day, no one can explain the physical evidence, leading to 3 chilling theories that still haunt the town. The first theory is the most grounded, but perhaps the most terrifying. It suggests a highly organized, predatory abduction. Proponents of this theory believe that a customer, perhaps someone Sarah and Bobby knew and trusted, entered the store just before closing. This person, wielding a silent weapon like a firearm, forced the teenagers to strip off their shoes to prevent them from running away, and coerced them out the back door into a waiting vehicle. But this theory stumbles on the cash. Why would a kidnapper leave the register open and untouched? Was it a deliberate attempt to confuse the police, a bizarre calling card, or did the perpetrator simply not care about the money? The second theory points to a sudden, psychological break or a bizarre pact between the two teens. Some believe Sarah and Bobby, desperate to escape their mundane lives, staged their own disappearance. They left the money and their belongings as a final, dramatic statement, a way to shed their old identities completely. But if they fled barefoot into the cold Pennsylvania night, how did they evade the police dogs, the highway cameras, and a massive community search without a single sighting? And where did they go with no money, no shoes, and no identification? The third theory, whispered in the dark corners of online forums and by locals who remember that eerie night, is much more unsettling. They point to the final logbook entry, "The man in the back won't choose." Some believe this wasn't a human customer at all, but something else. They point to a series of bizarre, unexplained power surges in the area that night, and reports from a truck driver who claimed to see a strange, silent light hovering over the tree line near Video Haven at around 10 p.m. Did Sarah and Bobby encounter something that didn't understand the value of human currency, something that left the paper money behind because it was only interested in them? 30 years later, the building that once housed Video Haven sits abandoned, its windows boarded up, overgrown with weeds that claw at the concrete. The neon sign is gone, but the mystery remains as fresh and chilling as it was in the summer of 1993. Two kids walked into their shift on a quiet Sunday afternoon, and simply vanished into the static. What do you think really happened? Drop your theory in the comments. If this kept you up at night, subscribe. We investigate mysteries like this every day.